Are we? Hello, my name is Clara Neal. I was born in my parents' home in Waldo Hills, up by Victor Point, about a mile south. And my father and I were born on the same day, April 10th. We shared that birthday. And we lived right next door to my Oma and Opa, which is Grandma and Grandpa in German, which you probably all know. So my father, Wenzel Dörfler, was from Austria and came to New York by steamship and arrived at Castle Garden Depot in 1867. This was before Ellis Island was even built. It was located near the tip of Manhattan Island. This entry into the United States was called the Golden Door by some because New York was considered the land of opportunity for poor immigrants entering the United States. My father was a farmer and then was lured to Wisconsin to join other German-speaking refugees in hopes of the free land under the Homestead Act. My mother, Anna Fink, was born in Wisconsin and later came to Oregon with her parents. Her family first took the old immigrant train to San Francisco and then went by boat to Portland. My parents both settled in the Waldo Hills area where they met. I remember my parents were so proud to have a home built on their property. Not that long after the building was all done and complete, a fire destroyed our whole home and all our furnishings. The loss was $2,000 with the structure and all our fine furnishings. It was a loss that took a while for our whole family, and I just remember my mom and dad being so sad for a long time. I became a public school teacher and then met and married Jessie Neal. We had 2 sons, Leonard and Dwayne, and things did not work well for us. It was a very long 9 years of turmoil, and we decided to divorce. I did get custody of the boys, and I was allotted $50 a month, which is comparable to about $1,000 a month now. We moved back in with my parents, and I decided to apply for the post office in Sublimity. Here's an interesting fact. Women served as postmasters more than a century before they were given the right to vote. When I became postmistress during World War II, there were 16,000 women postmasters. It is fair to say that the American Post Office Department recognized the management abilities of women perhaps more than any other private governmental organization. I was the first woman postmistress in Sublimity in 1942. I was so excited to have this position and I wanted to do my best for the city. I learned about the history of the local post office and found it fascinating. The Sublimity Post Office was established as a territorial post office way back in 1852. That was 7 years before Oregon became a state. We are the only town in the world with the name Sublimity. James Denny, the first postmaster, came up with the name Sublimity. Up until then, our town was called Hobson Corner, after Hadley Hobson, a former state senator and a past postmaster. Stamp collectors from around the world wanted to collect the first cancellations for the new post office because of our rare name. After 4 years of working at the post office, another fire changed my life. In February, a fire broke out in the back living quarters of my home. The fire department was able to put out the fire before it reached the front of the building where the post office was. And that building is right down on the corner of Denny and Center. It just got painted recently. Looks very nice. The women from the group of foresters in my church at St. Boniface helped me by throwing me a surprise shower. Enough cash donations were raised by them that was almost enough to buy a brand new stove for $150. By April, construction was started to rebuild my little home in the back of the post office. Before my post office was built, the post office was either in a house or a store, and I knew of one that was in a shoe store once. I worked at that little post office on the corner of Center Street for 20 years. My personal post office box is P.O. Box 1, and I'm not lying. By the time I retired, President John F. Kennedy gave executive orders promoting equal employment for federal workforce. All appointments and promotions were given without regard to sex or race. This was a groundbreaking change for our country. After I retired, I kept very busy. I joined the Altar Society, which we maintained the ceremonial objects for church used in the worship service, and I made floral arrangements for the church. And of course, I wanted to be part of the Forester Club, which helped me during the fire. That organization helps with medical assistance and helps people financially during times of hardship, unemployment, and provides social benefits like today's welfare. I was also on various committees like the Marion Home Auxiliary. I guess you would call me a social butterfly. I loved to attend the charity events and private parties, and maybe being this active socially helped me live all these 100 years on Earth. Oh, and I can't forget to tell you about my 2 sons. Leonard was my oldest, and was so proud to be a Marine and serve his country in World War II. When he got home, he married pretty Stella Lule, and they eventually lived in Jordan, where they had 3 boys and a girl. Leonard played professional baseball as a catcher for 16 years, and he set the record for the Pacific Coast League of 100 consecutive games without any errors. He played for the Oakland Oaks and the Sacramento Solons during his career in baseball. It was such a treat to watch him play ball. The whole family loved to travel with him and watch his games. He later worked as a timber cutter after he retired from baseball. Dwayne also followed in his brother's footsteps and joined the Navy during the war. My boys were very close, and Leonard served as Dwayne's best man when he married Claire. They moved to Washington in the Olympic Peninsula, where they spent summers at Highest Mountain. It was a fire lookout since Dwayne was a forester. Claire loved the trees her husband protected and planted every species that's up in that area in Washington. Later, they had 2 girls and a boy. I didn't get to see them as much since they lived in Washington. Our family mottos was Neals have to be tough. And later, this would definitely prove to be true. Dwayne got very sick and had to endure treatments for cancer. And sadly, he died of the disease at the age of 40. I can't believe I've survived him by 30 years. I'm so proud of my boys and all the things we went through. Those experiences just made strong men out of them. Now I'm getting a little tired talking to you all. After all, I bet you haven't met too many people who have lived to see their 100th birthday. As I look over at my church, I remember my mother telling me she was the oldest parishioner in the church and had seen this present church as well as 2 other buildings used for the church. I guess now I'm the oldest person at our church, and I wouldn't trade that honor for anything. Thank you for visiting me and listening to my story. And if you send me a letter to P.O. Box 1, I might answer it.